Well, they're considered among the most prestigious honors in the culinary world. The James Beard Awards are handed out each year, and this year, several Oregon names once again took home the top honors. Portland's Jinju Patisserie was named Most Outstanding Bakery in the United States.
I don't even know how much I say thank you to our community. They've been showing us amazing love, amazing support since day one of our opening our little tiny shop.
And Timothy Wastel, executive chef at Antica Terra in Amity, was named Best Chef Northwest and Pacific. Thanks so much for joining us here on Straight Talk. I'm Stephanie Domerat. Now this week we are celebrating Oregon's thriving restaurant scene and meeting the locally based chefs and owners who are gaining national recognition and making a name for themselves and our state. I sat down with three incredible culinary talents who were honored this year. Chef Kari Shaughnessy of Hayward, a semifinalist this year for Best Chef Northwest and a finalist last year for Best New Restaurant in America. Sandek Podbielski, owner of Portland's Coquine, a finalist this year for Most Outstanding Restaurant in the United States, also a multi-time finalist for Best Chef and Outstanding Hospitality. And Mariah Pisha-Duffley, co-owner of Gato Gato, a multi-time finalist for Best Chef and Best New Restaurant. All right, I thank you all for being here in beautiful Coquine today. It's so nice to meet you all. I want to start with a recognition that you have all received, several years of nominations from the James Beard Awards and the Foundation. Sandek, I want to talk to you first. You just got back from Chicago. What was it like being there? Your restaurant was only a handful in the country that was nominated for this.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a strange experience. Portland's a really small city.
Yeah.
And when you get outside of Portland and see, you know, in a city like Chicago or a city like New York where the population is so much larger, it's easy when we're here to think that like Portland's a really big deal, and then to see these other, the rest of the country is a big place.
Yes.
It's exciting. It's exciting that this is it, 10 tables.
Yeah.
So for this little place to pop up on a list being recognized for doing something well is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, a handful across the whole country, so it's really, really a big honor. Kari, I want to ask you, what was it like for you being nominated 2 years in a row?
Pretty crazy. Yeah, it was surprising and inspiring, and we got to go to Chicago as a whole team. At that time we were a team of 10, and so we all went together last year, and just being able to bring everyone and get to see their faces light up and experience a new city and meet so many other chefs across the country. It was really, that honestly was my favorite part of the whole thing, was watching the teams, getting to see it through the team's eyes.
Yeah, I love that. Speaking of that, Mariah, it's been several years your team at Gato Gato has been nominated for different things since 2020. How does this recognition change, basically the restaurant and the way that people view your restaurant, and does it at all?
Yeah, there is firstly like a positive financial impact to getting that type of recognition, and being in a business where revenue can be really unpredictable. We're all working on really tight margins. These nominations come during a time of year that is typically not our busiest. So having that influx of like energy and revenue and recognition and validation is like meaningful on a lot of levels as a business and just as people. Getting recognized for what you've put so much hard work into and what your team has worked so hard together to do it feels really good.
So in the last 2 years, it feels like Oregon's like really taking a lot of top honors. Long Bon last year, more honors this year with Jinju Patisserie, Timothy Wastel in Willamette Valley. Were any of you surprised at kind of like all of these names that are coming from Oregon?
No.
No, yeah, not at all.
Except for maybe you guys identified with this too, seeing our own name on there for the first time. I was like, is there another Gato Gato in Portland? Like, what is this? But I think like, I again, I don't know if this is the same for you both, but part of the reason that I moved to Portland, Oregon is because I knew it had this really exciting, vibrant food scene. So seeing those people that you moved here to be in an industry with on that list is not surprising, but it is exciting and fun.
What is happening in Oregon right now that this momentum is going?
I think one thing that's really cool about Oregon right now is that I live out in the country. That's where my restaurant is, and so we often look in at Portland, and similarly to what you're saying, like you see those names on a list, and you're like, of course, Portland and all these wonderful restaurants and my colleagues should be recognized. And then we started in the past couple of years to see the Willamette Valley get a little more acknowledgement and a little more recognition, and that has been a really wild and cool thing to see. But I mean, to me, it's surprising that people are starting to recognize us, but it also is so well deserved because it's a beautiful community that is doing wonderful things, and it is the hub of where a lot of our food comes from in this state. And so the fact that that has been getting nationally recognized all of a sudden has been really exciting for the community to watch.
What do you think sets Portland or the greater Portland area, Willamette Valley, other areas in Oregon apart from other big food cities like LA, New York, Chicago? Sandak, what do you think?
I think we're still small enough that we have room to express ourselves in a more genuine way. I think that I think there's room for individuals, and I think there's room for real, I think, personal perspective that doesn't necessarily exist in a bigger city.
Anything to add?
What Sandak just said is exactly why I ended up here. We started off as a pop-up. We have a lot of energy and a lot of ideas and are really inspired by experimenting, and it was really exciting to us to move here. Nobody knew us. The food we cook isn't food that a lot of people have tried before, and so we were so excited that people would just give it a shot. And as a pop-up, when you're kind of experimenting and seeing what people respond to, having people come and be excited with you about what you're excited about is incredibly rewarding, and I think that gave us the confidence and the momentum to then open a restaurant. And I think the barrier to entry compared to a city like New York or LA is so much lower, which means that we get to have a much more diverse group of restaurant owners and a food scene that's much more diverse, which then has its own positive momentum that we all get to be part of.
Does anyone see something missing or that we could have more of, you think, in the food scene here or beverage scene?
I think that Oregon is such an incredible hub for agriculture, and I know that that is something that is really important to all three of our restaurants, and I often think that could be cherished and talked about more for the amount of incredible small farms and producers that we have. I think that could be a bigger conversation in the community of sourcing of restaurants and where food is coming from. And
nice.
Yeah, to me, there is always more room for that conversation.
Nice.
Yeah. I would love to add to that. I mean, to your point about how there's such an exciting food scene in Portland, which is true. A lot of that comes from the fact that we have such incredible access to so many amazing food products that are so close to us, and a relatively long growing season. I mean, January, February is kale and potato time, but other than that, I mean, we have these amazing agricultural products that come throughout the year. 15 years ago, I think everyone was kind of sick of the conversation, the sort of greenwashing that was happening, where every restaurant would name every farm, and it was like, it became comical. It was parodied on that show Portlandia.
Yeah.
And I think that people kind of shied away from it, but the intent behind that initially was a good thing. It was to connect people with understanding that unless you're eating a tomato in Portland and in the Willamette Valley, if you're eating a tomato outside of the tail end of summer, then it's not a perfect tomato.
Right, right. And it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yes, yeah, and it's not a tomato that's from here.
Yeah. So even with all the accolades that a restaurant can get, as all of yours has, you're still running a small business. That can be a challenge. We're 5 years out from the start of the pandemic. We lost a lot of really, really loved restaurants in that time. How do you think the restaurant industry is doing as a whole here? Mariah, let's start with you.
Not well. I mean, I think that's my incredibly short answer. But in the context of like, if another pandemic came, would we be better prepared? And like, unfortunately, I don't think the answer is yes, at least not for my businesses. I think that restaurants have always, like I said, sort of operated with a lot of uncertainty, and even pre-pandemic, like your chances of surviving for 5 years as a restaurant were incredibly low. And I don't think that the pandemic like bolstered restaurants as much as I would like. I think that we did learn a lot from the experience of operating restaurants during a pandemic, but I don't know that we've had enough time yet to put all of those learnings into action and convert all of that information into a more sustainable restaurant industry.
What do you two think?
I think the pandemic taught all of us how to pivot often and all the time. And that is an invaluable skill in this industry. But I completely agree with you in the sense that there's so much that we could have learned and did learn from that experience, but it often kind of felt like trapped, maybe like an extreme word to use, but like it's going to take time to take all of those things that we learned and saw, and the industry is not fixed by any means from it. There is a lot of holes, and it takes a community at large, it takes a country of support to fix those holes, and that is something that is still very prevalent in our day-to-day lives.
What is the biggest, I mean, we know inflation's hitting everyone, the cost of food has gone up, the cost of labor, what are your biggest challenges right now as far as running a small business or a restaurant? Sandik, let's start with you.
Oh man. We have 10 tables in this restaurant, 6 bar seats, and we can comfortably serve a really busy night in this dining room is 60 diners. And we have organized ourselves and we plan accordingly to make sure that 60 diners who come into this restaurant on a busy night will be given an exquisite experience. We can't add more seats to the restaurant, and every year, every month, as costs go up, we can't actually raise our prices. Rent is more every year, and insurance is more every year. Our water bill, our trash bill, all of those things continue to rise, and we do what we can to keep our prices reasonable. But the expectation that everything grows when physically it can't is a little insane. And so, I think that's one of many different challenges that
It's good insight.
that we're up against.
Mariah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think absolutely, like the proportion of the costs that we're incurring and the prices of what we're serving, that ratio doesn't get closer to working.
I think it can feel surprising because sometimes, like from a public perspective, when you see these incredible restaurants that you think are doing so well and they're so busy all the time and then they close, and you're just wondering like, I thought they were doing so well, or they, people loved them, and you guys seem to that seems to make sense for you, even though maybe for me it wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, we ran into this problem when we were nominated for Best New Restaurant. The week that we were nominated, I was sitting at a table with my managers, and closing was a big part of that conversation.
Wow.
We were not busy. Hayward was not landing, if I'm being completely honest. And that nomination came in and entirely saved my business.
Wow.
But what's interesting is that in those 2 months of making it from semifinalist to finalist, we were incredibly booked out for that period. And then the perception to the community came that we were unreachable and that no one could get in anymore. And that everyone was driving from Portland to come to our restaurant and the locals couldn't dine there anymore. And those full reservations lasted about 3 months. And we have plenty of room, like we are doing okay, but we still have seats available and we still want everyone to come in. And there was this misperception that came up that was like, oh, you guys got too popular and you're too fully booked and we can't go in anymore. And I would love to look at everyone and be like, that's just not true. Like we have space, we have room. It might not be Saturday at 7 p.m., but it doesn't mean that there aren't tables available for all of you to come in. And we very similarly, I think to all 3 of our restaurants, are a place for a quick drink and a snack with a friend at the bar or an anniversary dinner. We can kind of hit all of those marks, and we still want to be a community business where people stroll in and walk in off of the street.
That's good.
Just as much as I want someone to drive down from Portland to celebrate their birthday.
We're going to take a quick break and have more from our guests coming up, including what they say are the biggest challenges facing local restaurants right now and how Trump's goal to increase deportations is impacting the local hospitality industry. Stay with us. And welcome back to Straight Talk. Thanks for joining us. The prestigious James Beard Awards were this week, celebrating exceptional culinary arts across the country, and several Oregon names were recognized. I sat down with 3 acclaimed culinary talents at Coquine Restaurant in Southeast Portland to talk more about Oregon food scene and how things are recovering after a tough few years in the pandemic. But first, I asked about the Trump administration's push to increase deportations of undocumented workers. Here's what they had to say. I want to switch gears a little bit. We know that the federal administration right now is pushing hard on immigration enforcement, and we know that the hospitality industry, agricultural industry relies heavily on immigration labor workforce. Have any of your restaurants or those you know been impacted by this enforcement we're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be hard to be a human existing in any industry right now and not be impacted by some of the horrific action that we're seeing being taken towards immigrants. So I think as people who work in restaurants, we're certainly impacted by, the agricultural food chain supply, and we're influenced by having some friends at restaurants who are worried about their own employees or their colleagues, but also just as people who exist in a society, it's really heavy right now. And I think also this speaks to part of what I was saying about the challenges of being a business owner and the responsibility of being a leader for a group of people who, even if they're not impacted because somebody at your restaurant specifically is being targeted, maybe their partner's work is being targeted, or maybe they're just scared because it's scary right now. And we want to be leaders who are providing safety and stability, and our ability to do that right now is severely compromised, and that's a scary place to be as a leader of people, no matter what business you're in.
There is sort of a fear, I think, that has been struck across the community, no matter what position you are in this industry. And it is really hard to watch employees go through that, to feel that internally, but not be able to say that out loud, because it is our job to create a safe environment for our employees. And, the Portland is being hit, the Valley is being hit immensely. This community is ingrained in what we do. It is every part of our farmers and our wineries and our butchers, and it is the reason that it's how we all run our businesses, And I know people who are scared to drive home at night from their jobs, and that is a terrible, unimaginable place to be in.
Switching gears again, I want to ask you, what would you want the public to know about what it's like to run a restaurant? Like, not everyone gets to see the ins and outs of what goes into it. We've gotten into it a little bit, but if you could say, I really wish you understood this, about what it takes to run a successful restaurant.
If you are dining in a restaurant, that's because it's somebody's dream that you are there. And we're so excited to be there with you. And like getting to put part of yourself into a physical space and getting to watch the human experience of people sharing a moment in space together, even if they aren't looking directly at each other or are all part of the same conversation. I think something we all really learned from the experience of going through COVID is how valuable just sharing an experience with strangers is, even if you're not directly interacting with them. So if you're doing that in a restaurant, you are part of making somebody's dream come true. And I know it sounds corny, but it's true. We wouldn't work so hard doing what we did if it wasn't really meaningful to us. So I think what I want guests to know is that we feel really grateful that they're choosing to spend their time and their money with us, and that we really appreciate them helping us see this dream that we've all had and see all of our hard work come to fruition with a joyful moment.
Sandig.
Mariah, from the moment I met you, I knew that you had a true heart of hospitality, and it inspires me.
Thank you so much.
Moly.
I love you. So sweet.
I don't know that I have anything to add to that.
It was very good.
That is the truth. I was going to say something weird, it's like doing a Rubik's Cube while body surfing.
Which it is.
That is your dream.
But,
It is.
yeah, I don't want that dream. I want yours. Yeah, I have nothing to add.
I think that you could hear a lot of things that we have all said today and been like, wow, they are not selling it. and that is a big part of it. But I think that, like you said, the reason that we do this, and one thing, like we touched upon with Portland, is Portland restaurants do feel very personal to me. All three of us here own our own businesses, and we are all in them daily. We are very much ingrained into how they run, and sometimes it is really challenging to wear all of those business owner hats and then also turn around and be like, okay, we are live now. And that balance is really hard, but it is, I'm in the process of moving my restaurant from McMinnville to Carlton, and we open in 2 weeks. We open July 9th.
And 2 weeks going
yeah, it's
on.
a heavy 2 weeks. And it is so incredibly personal. I have picked out and been a part of every inch of this new space. I had my parents weeding and pulling hedges and piling trash into a dumpster yesterday. It is all hands on deck, and we are all involved. And I'm so grateful that it gets to exist. And even with all of these challenges, the joy that it is going to bring to see those first customers in the dining room, I think is going to be immeasurable. And also to see my team in that new space is going to be such an incredible experience. But there is, amongst all of the hardship that we endure every day, we obviously would not be here if we didn't absolutely love what we do. And it does feel, as cheesy as it is in a big way inviting people into your home, because we spend more time in these restaurants than anywhere else.
I love it. There's so much heart, all of you, each and every one of you, and big sense of community even within the three of you. So it's been such a pleasure to hear from you, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Again, a big thank you to our guests this week, Chef Kari Shaughnessy, Mariah Pichadefli, and Sandig Podbielski. By the way, I asked them to name a few of their favorite spots, and they said Ha Viel, a Vietnamese restaurant on 82nd Avenue in Portland, Austral at Duality Brewing in Northeast Lawrence in Portland, and Tacos El Gordo in McMinnville. Just a few you may want to check out. Well, that'll do it for our show this week. Thanks so much for watching. A reminder, you can stream Straight Talk on your own schedule anytime. You can download the free KHW Plus app, available now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. We'll see you next week back here on Straight Talk.